Thank you very much, Gail, and thank you very much for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here. I think the framing of today's discussion with this introductory presentation from UNESCO and approaching it through the recommendations of this really good report is extremely relevant to the constituency my organization represents, so secondary and tertiary level students who make up a substantial part of young people around the globe and therefore hold quite immense stakes when it comes to the question of how we want a holistic vision, or to stay in the wording of the report, a new social contract for education to look like in the future. I think what UNESCO's International Commission succeeded to do is to really present a comprehensive and very critical analysis of the multidimensional crises that we are facing without failing to provide pathways for action. And I would like to try to speak to some of them, corresponding with the issues at the core of the discussions that we are having at the moment within the international students movement, between regional and national student unions within our membership. The first one relates to democracy. The COVID-19 pandemic has undoubtedly exacerbated democratic decline and gave rise to this recent spring of authoritarianism with shocking attacks on academic freedom, institutional autonomy, and freedom of expression in all parts of the world. And we agree with the report that education has a distinctive role in preparing young people to be active citizens, fostering commitment to fundamental values, to human rights and democratic discourse. And to live up to this crucial responsibility, we need to democratize education itself. And I think this process of democratization needs to start at the local level in schools and universities, by meaningfully involving students and their unions in institutional governance and policy making, listening and also acting upon the concerns expressed by learners and giving them a real chance to co-shape their educational realities. And I think by doing so, education systems are installing an organic, genuine belief in the power of democracy itself within young people. Way too often, in our experience, critical voices of young people are being suppressed and replaced with token individuals incapable of asking the necessary and uncomfortable questions and to influence the status quo. So a commitment to active citizenship education therefore cannot go without an active commitment to support and work with existing representative union structures of students. The same can be said for teacher unions, who I'm not here to speak on behalf of, but whose history of defending democracy is certainly out of question. Another issue at the heart of the report and at the center of the student movement discourse is the need to urgently act upon the greatest threat humanity has ever faced. The environmental catastrophe is well documented, and as students, we listen to science and we stand behind the scientific community. So we consider climate education to be an integral, necessary, central aspect of quality education, and learners as well as teachers must urgently be equipped to do their part to address the climate crisis and shape democratic, inclusive, and socially sustainable communities. Delivering quality climate education, we believe, requires far-reaching changes in curricula and study programs that can only be achieved by fundamentally redesigning learning and teaching strategies. And that should also involve learners and embed education for sustainable development into school and university curricula as a cross-disciplinary and core subject for everyone. So in the end, students do not only achieve climate literacy once they complete their education, but hopefully can be supported to carry out sustainability initiatives throughout their educational journey, throughout their educational pathway. And the third and last topic I would like to touch upon is education funding, the unfortunately make or break factor for most of the brilliant recommendations, proposals that were put forward by the report. On International Students' Day 2021, we have launched the Don't Cut Our Future campaign with national unions urging their governments to increase investments in education. According to the United Nations, as probably many of you know, education has only accounted for a minimal share, 2% on the average, of stimulus spending in most countries during the pandemic. And 66% of low-income countries have been forced to cut down education budgets, while only 33% of high-income countries had to do the same. So as always, the increased economic pressure is hitting the global south, and they're the most vulnerable, the hardest. And as you also know, financing of education has been inadequate for decades, and much more funding is required to overcome these important things addressed by the report, the digital divide, the necessary modernization of learning environments, of schools, of universities, but also the training and education and the payment of teachers. That needs to be done adequately, and it costs a lot of money to ensure equity to access and completion, to realize lifelong learning opportunities, and therefore social mobility at large. And allow me that statement. I think there is enough money in the system. We can agree on that. I think we know that governments always find money to spend on the military, the police, security, surveillance, and recently a lot on corporate welfare. So in our opinion, to put this proposed new social contract for education into effect, we need a broad coalition of actors working together, achieving momentum to publicly fund its implementation while being guided by the overarching aim to not leave the most marginalized behind. I think I'm already stretching my time, so I'm going to end it here and give it back to Gail, and thank you for your attention.